Hi, and welcome to this quick tutorial for Sequoia by 3Dimension. The first time you download Sequoia, you will find a zip folder. Please unzip the folder and extract the contents. Once done, you will find a database and the Sequoia Blender add-on. You can go ahead and install the add-on in Blender by going on Edit, Preferences, and then click on the Install button and locate the add-on into the container. Double click on the zip file and then click on the checkbox to activate the add-on. At this point, we have to locate the database. You can do so by clicking on this little arrow that will open the add-on preferences, and then click on the folder icon to locate the database, which is still into the container folder Sequoia 1.049 database. Double click and the database has been located. Now the add-on is installed and activated. You can open the right panel with the N button on your keyboard, navigate to Sequoia, and you will find the main panel. At this point, we can add any element to our scene, for instance a plane. Select an element that we want to add from the natural element library that we find here into the Sequoia Select Element menu, for instance a grass. With the plane selected, we click Add Element. At this point, Sequoia will add the elements to our selected object, and we can also go ahead and add as many as you want, for instance trees, and tweak whatever parameter you want. You can also have some more options in the extra control, for instance display amount, and from there you can control the randomness and many other parameters that will definitely add more variation to your scene. One thing to notice, and this is very important, every time you add a new element to your scene, Sequoia will add elements into your outliner. So by default, Sequoia will hide the element so that you don't see it. I'm talking about the instance object. I'm going to clean up the scene to show you better what I mean. So let's start from nothing, so we have everything clean, and if I show one of those elements, you will see the instance object somewhere appearing in your scene. So you don't want these elements to be in your render because they are just an instance object from your particle system. To hide them, you can click on this icon over here and toggle those two main icons, which is basically disabling viewport and disabling renders. So you want to hide them in the render. So we click on this little camera icon, and even if we add, for instance, a new tree to our scene, let's go to the next layer, they will show up in render as we see them, but we will not see the instance object, which is this one laying down. So we want to turn them off. Remember that this is part of your plane. In fact, if we hide the plane, we don't see them. But this is the instance object that we want to hide. An easy way to do that, once you have composed your scene, is to create a new collection, call it, in my case, Sequoia Assets, and then move all those objects into the Sequoia Asset collection, and then disabling it with this check mark will make sure that none of those objects will appear into your render. At this point, you can go ahead and launch a render, and you'll be sure that none of the instance object will appear in your scene just by disabling this checkbox here into your Sequoia assets. Another important aspect of working with particle system in general in Blender is the decision to keep the instancer, which in this case is our plane, to appear into the display port, which is this view here that we have. Is not the render, it's just the viewport, and you can hide it by clicking on display instancer or hide instancer, but you have to also decide if you want to show it in render or not. So in this case, if we don't want the plane at all, we can hide it into the viewport by unchecking this check mark here, and also don't show it in render. At this point, we can go ahead and render our scene and we will not see the plane. Sequoia takes great advantage out of the Blender particle system. So we all know that the particle system in Blender is a really complex engine. So to make sure that everything goes smooth on your side and during your creative process, we added a panic button over here, which is the reset button. So what this reset button does is simply cleans up everything that is still on the way of Sequoia or the particle system to make sure that you have zero errors. Let me just give you an example. In case you add a plane, for instance, and an element like a group of trees, and then you remove this element over here, we can probably have some troubles later when we want to add another element, like for instance removing this object and not clicking on purging unused data. So let's say that you forget to click on this blue button, and then when you try to add another element, you're probably gonna get a problem like this emitter over here. So we don't want this to happen. If this happens because of the action of not clicking on this button, we have the reset button that cleans up everything. As you can see, by clicking a couple of times and confirming, it will clean up every remaining piece of data into the Sequoia database or the Blender database, so that you can start all over again, adding your things to the scene. It's very simple to use, as you can see. So we have nearly zero problems even when it comes to adding multiple objects, but this reset button really helps you when you lost track of the number of particle system that you add, or the number of time you clicked on remove element, and you probably forget to click this purging unused data blocks. At this point you can go always to the reset button and everything goes smooth. One important thing to remember is that the particle system has some very cool features in Blender in general. So if you add, for instance, a group of plants, like in this case, and then you go to the next layer, and then you add another group of plants, they will be placed exactly in the same spot. If you want to randomize the position of those two elements, you can go to the particle setting and just tweak a little bit the seed, which is this slider over here, and that will go forever and place the items in some random position, so that you will never have the object growing and appearing in the same spot. So just this little trick over here, just move the seed and you will have some randomization of the root position of any object in your scene. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.